Greetings adventurers. As a casual free-to-player, simplicity and relaxation are the first considerations. After a few months of playing experience, here I present to you the tier list for new player classes. These are the standards to consider when ranking a class. First of all, how easy it is to play the class, both to pick up and master to full potential. Secondly, how easy it is to build and gear up, or how expensive it will take for the class to reach the average power level, then how strong the class will be at the last. However, since the class balance patch is frequent, it is important you pick the class you like the style most, instead of chasing the meta. Please note that this recommendation tier list is based on my experience and opinions, so if you have any different thoughts, they are respected. Feel free to share them in the comments section. First of all, the S+ tier. We got Bard and Paladin, the only two support classes so far in Lost Ark. Since you have a limited amount of healing resources in this game, these two healer classes become the most wanted classes in any team for almost all sorts of PvE content. If you have to compare Bard and Paladin to pick a preference, I would say Bard over Paladin. Bard has more healing, especially burst of healings, which is more desirable for unfamiliar contents. Paladin has consistent healing over time, he has great counter skills, and his buffs are easier to maintain than a Bard, especially the attack boost buffs that can reach 100% coverage in an entire battle. He's got cleanse to remove debuffs for your team, and he is a bit tankier than Bard. So overall, these two support classes are easy to play, extremely wanted in teams, and cheap to build since you only need 3 or even sometimes 2 level 3 engravings to be powerful enough to babysit your teammates. The cons for these two classes would be that they need a different skill set for solo PvE content such as clearing mobs when doing daily chaos dungeons, plus they are not good at clearing story quests in the early game. In general, if you want to play a female support class, Bard is your choice. If you want to be a male holy knight with cool armors, Paladin is the man. Moving on to the S tier. I will put Shadow Hunter, aka Demonic, and Machinist, aka Scouter, in this tier. The reason I put them so high is not necessarily because they are more powerful than the other classes, it's because they are very easy to pick up and very cheap to build. These two are transformation DPS classes. I would rank Shadow Hunter a bit higher than Scouter because first of all, Shadow Hunter heals HP every time she transforms, then her transformational skills do not require certain combos to cancel animation locks, and her transformation status lasts longer than Scouter. Scouter, on the other hand, gains a huge amount of shield for the entire duration of your transformation. His transformation lasts shorter than Shadow Hunter, and he would need some combos to optimize your damage output. Here comes the most important part, these two classes require very little investment compared to all other classes. First of all, you don't need to do any horizontal content to collect skill points, because you do not rely on your main skills to do damage in human forms. All you need is high specialization, say around 1400. Which is easily obtainable from not even very high quality accessories, 3 to 5 tripods that help you increase your gauge faster to transform, and an epic rarity Wealth Rune. For sure it is better if you got the legendary Wealth Rune, high quality accessories, and more tripods. It will definitely help you transform even faster, say using 1 or 2 fewer human form skills. However, they are not compulsory for these two classes to be played smoothly. Moreover, you only need 2 high-level gems for your transformation skills damage and cooldown, while the other classes would better need almost all 11 of them. There are no big cons for these two classes, but if I have to make one, it would be that they may not be good for early game content such as story quest clearing either. Before you can reach the point that you got enough specialization to fast transform in less than or equal to 1 full skill rotation, it is miserable to wait for your main skill cooldown to fill up the gauge to transform. Another con may be that, even if you invest a lot more in the very late game, these two classes may not reward you with big damage gains compared to other classes. In other words, their upper limit, or ceiling may not be as high as the expensive classes. In general, if you want to play a female demonic transformation class, go for Shadow Hunter. If you like high-tech mech and Iron Man, go for Machinist, which will be released by the end of September 2022 for Steam. The A-tier classes are 2 bot classes. Most people play Mayhem Berserker since it is an easier playstyle, but the incoming balance patch is buffing the Brazil Secret Berserker 2. Berserker is the classic melee warrior, his skills are straightforward and easy to use. He's got burst and sustainable damage. His stagger and destructions are both great too. The cons will be that he may feel a bit clunky and his cooldowns are long before you get some swiftness. The magic number here is 800 for Mayhem Berserker by the way, therefore you need to be somewhat familiar with the boss patterns and mechanics to make decisions when using your skills in the late game PvE content. The Sorceress has a lot of big AoE skills, which makes her a perfect early game story quest clear choice. If you want to go through the story clear fast without getting a power pass, the Sorceress is one of the best classes to pick. Besides she can do big burst damage for Igniter playstyle or big sustainable magic machine gun damage for Reflux swiftness playstyle. However, any of the Sorceress builds is expensive for full potential damage output compared to other classes. Plus she is very squishy, but you got backup blink dashes on your X key to compensate for the mobility. So in general, these 2 classes are straightforward to play, and they both have good AoE clear. But they are also expensive to build, especially Sorceress, which means the more you invest, the stronger you get. If you are planning to big whale Lost Ark and run for the DPS MVP, go for the Sorceress. If you are looking for a closed-ranged warrior class, the Berserker is always there. Moving on to the B tier. Blue Gunlancer aka Combat Readiness Gunlancer is my main character right now. He is the tankiest class in Lost Ark so far. You can face tank most of the attacks from any bosses other than one-shot mechanics with your almost 100% uptime super armor shield that immune paralysis, knockdowns, floating, and knock away. Only the hardest CCs such as Electrocution and Fear can CC you, but you can still face tank them with your shield. If you want to do the raids by sitting there and relaxing while watching your teammates running around trying their best to dodge attacks from bosses but failed, this is the Giga Chad class for you. Red Gunlancer is fun to play, but not as tanky as Blue Gunlancer. However, you do more damage, especially burst damage with Red Gunlancer. This class has a lot of staggers. His destruction is good too, and Gunlancer's counter skill dash upper fire is one of the best counter skills in the game since its effective frame for the counter is extremely fast. This makes Gunlancer extremely useful for stagger checks and destruction mechanics. Gunlancer also has a party shield and cleanse, so sometimes he can work as a pseudo support if you really cannot find any support in your team. In my opinion, a Gunlancer should be the 3rd most wanted class right after Bard and Paladin. For the cons of this class, some say this class is slow, but it is not necessarily true. For example, a Blue Gunlancer usually takes shield charge and leap attacks. These skills can help with your movement quite a lot. However, the problem is that these 2 skills are also your main damage skills, so you may need to be familiar with some bosses and keep them out of cooldown to run for mechanics. In some cases, if a random mechanic appears out of nowhere and you happen to have the movement skills used for damage just now, you can be penalized hard in such situations. By the way, his spacebar is a backward jump. Unlike all other classes that move towards your mouse cursor, Gunlancer moves in the opposite direction of where your mouse cursor points. Therefore some players may not be used to it and screw up sometimes. As for another con, if you played Gunlancer for a long time in raids, you could catch a bad habit of not dodging things, and when you hop on your other classes, this bad habit could kick you hard too. Moreover, the Blue Gunlancer's damage output is just okay, it is not really fascinating. He's got decent damage because his damage uptime is longer than most other classes. But when facing a boss with a lot of mechanics that cannot be phase tanked, this advantage of Gunlancer got mitigated. So overall, if you want to play a closest to tank position class in Lost Ark, If you want safety and enjoy eating snacks while watching your teammates run for their lives like lunatics, this is the class for you. But you should not expect to see big numbers such as billions of damage from this class. So, this is not the class for everyone. Moving on to the next one in B tier, the Artillerist, or Blaster. This is not my familiar class, so I will just comment a little on him. He has a super armor shield too, just like Gunlancer's shield, but it does not have 100% uptime. He's got tons of staggers and destructions too. If you want, you can take him as a ranged Gunlancer. This class can go swiftness crit or specialization crit on him. I personally recommend the style of swiftness over specialization for new players. The specialization build indeed has more damage potential in the current meta, but it requires a support such as Bard to help him. As for the cons, this class requires a lot of horizontal content to be powerful. For instance, if you play specialization, you will need legendary runes including but not limited to Gale Wind, Wealth, and Rage to help with your skill's speed, attack speed and get on your wheelchair faster. These runes will require RNG and long time grinding for horizontal contents such as collections. You also need a lot of skill points too. However, if he is well fed with a nice specialization build and there's a support class to help you, then you can compete the damage MVP with the Sorceress. Moreover, most of his damage skills are projectiles and or with delays. If you are not familiar with the boss's movements, you can miss your attacks a lot, especially when facing some jumpy bosses with small hitboxes. However, this class is under construction for the incoming balance patches. Although the core playstyle may not be changed, some factors could affect the new player friendliness in certain aspects. Scrapper, especially Taijutsu Scrapper, is very new player friendly. You don't have to remember certain combos to do damage. She is relatively tanky with a decent defensive coefficient. Overall, she is a very balanced class. This means that she is capable of everything, such as doing damage and staggering. Her mobility is decent too. This is also her cons. She does not excel in anything particularly. She is not as tanky as Gunlancer. Her stagger is not as much as the Artillerist or Destroyer. Her mobility is not as fast as Gunslingers. But she is just overall a good entropy class for new players. If you want to play a female fighter class who has got some great punching sound effects, she is your choice. By the way, this class does not have a mana bar, which means you do not have to worry about mana issues. This is about it for the best new player classes tier list based on my opinions. If you have any thoughts or opinions, feel free to comment. Thank you for watching. Surprise, this is not over. I also added an okay-ish tier for some classes, and I will also make some comments for classes that did not make the tier list too. Again, these are just my opinions, there is no meaning to offend any individuals or groups in any ways. Everyone's opinion should be respected, so feel free to share yours too. Destroyer as a warrior class is very tanky too. Maybe not as tanky as Gunlancer, but not that far. He has a super armor shield as well. He hits slow but he hits hard. The problem with this class for new players is that you could miss your skills if you do not time it correctly. And some bosses moves a lot. Sometimes they can move from one side of the map to the other, or when guardians change areas, it is painful for destroyers to chase after the bosses. So he could be sluggish to play for new players. But he is a great class, especially after the previous balance patch happened before he got released on Steam. He became much easier to do damage compared to before. Lance Master or Glavier is good at doing staggers and destructions too. I put her as an okay-ish class for new players because she has two sets of skills to switch back and forth, and requires a lot of skill points too. She has a parry skill but not as good as the one for Gunlancer. You can choose to play Control Glavier to avoid the switch between Blade and Spear, but she becomes a complete back attack class and lost the parry. So in general, she is not very easy to play, and you need some boss knowledge for this class to shine in raids. Striker and War Dancer aka Battle Master. First of all, These two are back attack classes, which is a minus point for new player friendliness already. They may have more damage potential if you mastered their skills and the bosses, but definitely for not new learners. Plus, I want to mention something about War Dancer. She is very bad for early game story clear. If you do not plan to get a power pass for your first character, do not play her to clear your story quests. I did so and it was miserable. Please avoid my mistake. Her skills are just short with small AoEs. I would say that she does not shine before at least 1415 to 1445 item level. She is a late game class with great mobility and huge damage potential. Her skills are fast to use and provide great utilities for your team too. But she is a completely different class in the early game. So if you want to play her, use a knowledge transfer or a power pass on her. But in general, Striker and War Dancer have straightforward skills, therefore they make on the okay-ish tier. Sharpshooter has been receiving buffs for quite a while along these patches. He is a non-positional class which makes him easier to position himself in raids compared to entropy classes. Actually, his damage output is not the problem here. The core issue in my opinion is that he seems to be a ranged class, but a lot of his skills got animation locks which may not be very long but still gives him vulnerable windows and also makes his combos a bit sluggish. Also, you may have to get close to the boss to use Blade Storm to refill your gauge. And he is also kinda squishy. But his non-positional attribute and decent damage make him an okay-ish tier class for new players. Deathblade, another back attack class. Here, the remaining energy makes the okay-ish tier, not Surge, because the remaining energy is easier to play. This class requires you to be not only familiar with your skills but also know the mechanics and attack patterns very well for bosses, especially Surge Blades. Summoner is not released for Steam yet, but I have a feeling that she will be released after some rework. Just like what they did to Destroyer, revamp and then release for Steam. She makes the okay-ish tier due to her pets. But other than that, she is expensive to build, very squishy, and requires skill points too. Now for those who did not even make the tier list. Reaper, squishiest class in Lost Ark, back attack class. Hardly any mistake tolerance for this class. Deadeye aka Devil Hunter, back attack class, kinda squishy. His damage potential is insane, but you need a lot of skills in this class. Gunslinger, very squishy class. Although non-positional, she needs to switch between 3 stances, which means you could screw up and be penalized hard if you are using the wrong stance. Just like Deadeye, she requires a lot of skills and game knowledge to be mastered. Arcanist aka Arcana, very squishy. Plus she relies on RNG to draw good cards to do damage. Soul Fist, if you missed your awakening, I can give you nothing but a KEKW. It is actually easy to miss it if the boss moves a lot. Don't get me wrong, these classes are absolutely insane if you play them well and know everything in the raids. They could have more damage potential, however, their difficulties are much more compared to the new player-friendly classes I mentioned in the tier list. This finishes up the video. This tier list is just based on the current patch by the time I made this video. They may be subject to change and I would update it by then. Thank you for watching, hope it is helpful, see you in the next one.